out there. We got a great show today. I'm joined by my sidekick, my partner, my co-host, JJ from the other side of the ATL, live here on ATL Prime Sports with yours truly, Todd Porter. JJ, how are you today?
Hey, it's a Dog Tuesday. I'm doing extremely well. How about them dogs, TC?
Yes, I'm sure you're going to bark loud and proud in this program, and I can understand why. So, hey, just want everybody to know that we do have a show today until 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Tomorrow's show is at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Our guest will be the Georgia State play-by-play voice of Dave Cohen. He will join us. We will talk some Georgia State football history, some 2020 All Sun Belt Conference preseason team, and all kinds of things coming and going from the Georgia State football program. Plus, we'll talk about Major League Baseball. But today, it's all about them dogs. So let's get started. One of the dogs' biggest question marks is at wide receiver, JJ. Will Georgia have to depend on their incoming freshman at wide receiver this year? What do you think, pal?
Boy, it's up in the air at this point. Right now, I'm leaning towards it. I don't think they'll have to depend on them this season. They'll have a chance to grow. Will one or two of them be required? Absolutely. We saw what happened to Georgia last year. They were depleted at wide receiver with injuries. We have George Pickens back. I shouldn't say we. UGA has George Pickens back. Baylock's son looks like he's going to recover from his injury in time to face Virginia as long as we have a season. So you'll have two guys coming back there. You can also throw in Demetrius Robinson, Tommy Bush, Matt Landers, and Kieris Jackson. I don't think UGA is going to have to worry about those freshmen just yet. But again, if injuries occur, they'll have to lean on those guys.
Well, yeah, you know what? This to me is one of the most interesting positions on the team because, you look at George Pickens as a freshman. He had about 50 catches for 700 plus yards and 8 TDs. And then, Demetrius Robertson, he had 30 catches, about 330, couple touchdowns. And you had Dominic Blaylock, who had 18 catches, 310 and 5 touchdowns. So, you've got good young players coming back. You do lose Cagers with the Jets, and you lose Tyler Simmons with the Texans. And now you bring in these kids, JJ, from the, their top 100 overall players in the 2020 recruiting cycle. And let's just talk about one of them for a minute. Let's talk about the guy that won the fastest man. This guy's got speed up the wazoo, doesn't he?
Yeah, you were breaking up there. You mentioned speedster. I think you're talking about Aryan Smith, correct?
Yes, sir.
Darien Smith is a dart on the field, folks. Guy can run a route, can catch a football. This guy can extend the field. And I'm glad you mentioned all four. There's three total guys, three guys that are coming onto the campus this fall. One already early enrollee in Justin Robinson. All four guys, top 100 players. Not 100 wide receivers, folks. All four top 100 players. Extremely athletic, agile, quick. Kirby Smart got himself a bunch of good players. They can come in and compete. And it wouldn't surprise me, like I said, if one or two make a name for themselves this year, TC. We saw
I think
UGA,
I was going to say, for depth purposes, I think it's critical they make a name for themselves. You look at Justin Robinson, the 4-star turn heads as an early enrollee there at Georgia prior to our COVID-19, shutdown. And this kid, he projects as an outside threat, 6'4", kind of like Jeremiah Holloman was at Georgia.
Yeah, you're exactly right. He's going to be a big physical guy on the outside. You're going to look at him down the line and say, hey, this is a solid player for years to come. You mentioned Aryan Smith as a speedster, Roseme, and then you have Burton, all these guys can come in and make impact plays right now. Like I said, I still don't think they're going to have to rely on many of these guys. I think these guys can come in and learn the system. With George Pickens being a beast receiver as him,
He is.
I think he's a first-round draft pick at the end of next season in 2 years, obviously. But this guy's a beast. You saw it in the second half of the LSU game. He came in and had a pretty good game in the second half of the SEC championship game, despite getting beat and blown out. He played well, and who knows what would have happened. Remember, he's got to keep his cool. But George Pickens is going to be the key, and I don't think these freshmen are going to have to step up. But there's plenty of talent. Then you have Ladd McConkey, too, another wide receiver that came in very low ranked. But you see guys like, Monty Rice and Eric Stokes, who came in as under 3-star recruits right at that 3-star level and made a name for themselves at UGA and moved up the talent. So it's gonna be fun to watch these guys develop. Georgia's starting to bring in all the talent they can at that position.
Well, it's going to help. We think Newman, as they say on Seinfeld, will be the starter. We'll see if Newman does get the starting job at JT. These guys are going to definitely want they're definitely going to want the passes from Newman downfield. And we'll see if he can do that. You talked about Burton. He's a mix, to me, of Rosary and Smith. He's got size. He's got speed. It's 6'2" and all that. These are big kids. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you can hear me talking about, Demetrius Robinson and Dominic Blaylock. Coming off good seasons from last year. So I do think one or two of these guys need to produce. You mentioned Pickens is a beast. There is no question about it. He is. But I think one of these guys they're going to have to count on. You get injuries during the season. And one more point regarding those injuries, JJ. Now that we're not having a normal off season, it seems like every time something interrupts actions, we get action of playing or practicing or whatever, we seem to get more injuries in football. And that's why I think depth is definitely potentially a concern for them if they ever got an injury to Perkins. And I think it's imperative that one or two of these kids step in as freshmen and play well and help out my man Newman at quarterback.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. Definitely, you always want to see freshmen step up and make big plays because that means the future of your program's in good hands. Georgia has a lot of incoming talent at quarterback as well, so these wide receivers can thrive in the years to come with the quarterback talent behind them. We mentioned it 2 weeks ago on the show that quarterback room at Georgia is full. The wide receiver room is stacking up into that favor as well. We mentioned those 4 players, all top 100. 2, 3, 4, you could see all of them on the field this year. I doubt it. I'm sure 2 or 3 of them are going to either redshirt or play special teams and have a small role in this team. But you like to see the rooms in those skilled positions fill and stack up. We know Georgia's got good running back talent.
Well, you're right because of the injury factor. I think that's the part that, has to come into play.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Yeah, there's no question about it. That the injury factor to me, especially with all this COVID-19 stuff, is critical. And, and you want to be able to Georgia every once in a while because, they like to run the football at Georgia, tailback you. They like to use the great wall on the offensive line, my friend. But also, I would like to see them go 5 wide more often and use a couple of these freshmen in the lineup to spread out the D. What do you think?
No, I agree. And I think you'll see that this fall. New offensive coordinator Monken is going to take full advantage of the dual threat ability of Jamie Newman. I fully expect a more over-the-top threat from UGA this year to incorporate players. And we'll get into our key players later on in a second because I have a key player that I think will stand out above and beyond more in this offense than he has in the past 2 years he's been on the field at UGA. We'll
No,
get into
I
that
like
in a
it.
second.
I like it.
So-
It's a tease, man. Tease me.
It is.
Tease the
And I
audience.
think these wide receivers are going to thrive in this new offense. Buster Faulkner, know him personally, talked to his brother through social media, says they will be airing it out more. Expect a 60-40 ratio in passing to rushing instead of the other way around, a 60-40 rush to pass ratio. So that's
Wow. So you think they're going to flip the script then? They're going to go. They're going to flip the script. So I still think they're going to be balanced towards maybe a little bit towards more the run. But you say they're going to go 60-40. That's interesting.
That's what I think. I think they're going to finally have to take advantage of the talent that's outside. They finally have position players that can beat these SEC cornerbacks in one-on-one positions. They have the talent. They're physical enough. We mentioned George Pickens. We mentioned Dominique Blaylock. They now have a year of experience under their belt together with the prime quarterback. Now they come in with another experienced quarterback. I don't expect them to miss a beat. So these wide receivers should thrive in this new offense. These freshmen should have a lot to do with it. And you'll see a lot of names made outside catching passers this year. I really think so. I think you're right. I think it'll still be more around 50-50 when it's all said and done. But I do think Georgia will throw the ball a little bit more than they did last year.
Well, and also, and we'll have to end with this point and get to the next topic. With Newman, he's got the legs and the arm, where Georgia didn't have that before with Fromm. He was more of a drop back passer, and they think they're going to go downfield with Newman, and that's a tease too, because we'll talk about a stat later on in the program about Newman. That he can put that ball downfield. And I tell you what, if he has a great year and he is the one that's the starter, we're going to have a lot of fun during the week talking about Newman. Let's go ahead and go to the second topic here. Heading into the fall, Georgia definitely has arguably one of the best rosters in college football. Who are the key players at each position, JJ? Let's take one position at a time so we can talk about it back and forth, please. Go ahead, sir.
Absolutely. Let's start, TC, if you don't mind, in my opinion, where the Dogs are the best in the country, top 3 in the country at arguably each position, is defensive line. It's going to start with defensive tackle Jordan Davis. The guy's a beast, junior, experienced at nose tackle. Very, very predictable. Going to stop the run. Going to plug up the holes. Going to get after the passer on 3rd and long. That's where it starts. Jordan Davis, extremely key to this defense. If he makes plays, the linebackers can cover. That way they don't have to go and step up and play the run game. A very, very key player, nose tackle Jordan Davis, Jr. TC, I'll start there. TC may be breaking up. I'll explain a little bit more. Behind Jordan Davis, you have Tyman Mitchell, a redshirt freshman, coming in behind him. And then on the other side of him, at defensive tackle, you'll have Julian Rochester backing up incoming transfer from junior college, Devontae Wyatt, who I think is another key player. And it starts again on this defensive line with those 2 players, along with Malik Herring, a senior, number 10, who's a big boy, and he can, again, plug up the holes, allow the linebackers to drop back into coverage, read the quarterback a little bit more, and open up plays and players for like Azeez Ojulari, who's an amazing cover jack linebacker, makes the play on the outside, everything you need to do in and outside. The guy's a wonderful talent. So those 3 players right there on the defensive line, in my opinion, are 3 extremely key positions. We can keep on moving on with Sam linebacker Walter Grant, another senior, has gotten lots of experience out there, playing in several big-time ball games, and it really starts above and beyond with his defense. TC, I think we may have gotten you back.
You mentioned the young offensive line. And to me, if you've got a young offensive line, especially at the tackle positions, and you've got all this speed downfield, I'm going to flip the script and go to the offensive side of the ball. And we know that there's some other kids that have a chance to start at the quarterback position. But the kid that I think is going to win the job is Newman, Jamie Newman. No doubt about it. With his legs and his arm, and being able to spread it out and go 5 wide with these young wide receivers, and be able to have that run pass option with his legs, I think he's the key that will, he's the one that's going to stir the drink. I mean, he's the straw that stirs the drink. I think this more than most years, Georgia needs a mobile quarterback to not only give them a threat on the arm, with the downfield threat, but also with the legs, get 5 or 6 yards if you need a first down, and make a defensive player miss with a nice little swift move, and then be able to slide or get out of bounds. So, I just think that with Newman, with this situation, he's critical. I think his experience is critical. We'll go into depth more about that with the next topic. But, this is somebody that unfortunately hasn't been able to, due to the COVID-19, normally have, missing spring practice and all that. But the good thing is having a senior transfer from Wake Forest at the quarterback position, who I think is going to start unless JT Daniels comes over from USC and he happens to beat him out. And I don't think that's going to happen, but anything can happen. You've got the Mathis kid, who we talked about on the last show. It could be a wild card in the quarterback position. But to me, it's Newman's job to win, and having the experience at the Power 5 level right now, he's my critical player on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, no, you nailed it right there. You mentioned everyone from top to bottom. Jamie Newman's going to be well protected. Right tackle, Slayer, Cleveland, Hill, Schaefer, Truss. You're going to have an experienced offensive line protecting him as well. Like you mentioned, Zamir White, a junior, redshirt sophomore. Basically, he's been in the program for 3 years. He'll be running the football. I think that's another key position you can look forward to watching. But
JJ, can I ask you something? I'm sorry. Sure. Can I ask you something? So,
sure.
Everybody says it's Zamir White's job to replace DeAndre Swift and Brian Harriman from last season. And, to me, I was going to say Harriman, to me, he could run and catch it. These are really big shoes for Zamir White to fill. Who do you think, because he's going to be the bell cow, who do you think also is going to get the ball besides White in the backfield?
I am glad you asked. And remember, folks, how I mentioned that little tease, who I think is going to be an extremely key player, who's going to be more affected by this offense in a positive way than any other person on this team. And I think it's going to be running back James Cook. I really do. This guy's an amazing player out of the backfield. His brother is one of the best running backs in the game. James Cook can catch it. He can make a big play up the middle. He can juke outside, beat you outside with his speed. And I think that his ability out of the backfield to catch the ball and make yards after the catch, better than anybody else on the team. He will be effective in Monken's offense. He's going to be an effective player. He's going to be like a Miko Hardman coming out of the backfield. James Cook will be able to come in, catch the ball out of the backfield, be a change of pace back for Zamir White. And also, you got incoming guy, Kendall Milton, who was a top 5-6 running back in the 2020 class. He's coming in. He's hungry. Georgia's stacked in the running back room as well. But look out for James Cook. I think he could be the most improved player on this Georgia offense.
Well, that would say something, considering, George Pickens, to me, he just might, in my opinion, be the best overall player on the team.
I can agree with that. George Pickens is a wonderful player.
He hauled in 11 catches and 165 yards and touchdown against Baylor, and the sugar was already falling out of the sky. I mean, this guy was killing it. So, Pickens can stretch it, Zamir White can run it, and you say Zamir White can pound it, and the change of pace with Cook, and then you mentioned, Kendall Milton chipping in, Kenny McIntosh is going to get some play too, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. You got, like I said, that running back room, quarterback room, and now wide receiver room are full. So if you're coming to Georgia, put your competition hat on, put your best pants on. Come on, you better be ready to bring your lunch pail and come to work, because it's a full room, and each and every player is going to get their reps and get theirs. So I really expect James Cook to take off in this offense and look good with screens, just simple flout routes, flood routes in the outside, hot routes, dropping off for Jamie Newman, making things easy.
I tell you what, who's got Zamir White's, who's got the attention of Zamir White is Urban Meyer. He's the one that Zamir White has his attention. There's no doubt about it. Urban Meyer thinks that Zamir White is going to have a colossal season. He was the country's number one running back in the class of 18. The expectations were sky high for him when he got at Georgia. He had the knee injury, which really stunk. It kind of set back his freshman year. But man alive, man, holy cow. Now that Swift is gone to the Lions, Urban Meyer, man, he can't wait for Zamir White to run. And honestly, I can't either.
It's going to be fun to watch. I'm excited to see him be the featured back in the offense myself. We've seen the crowd get behind him when he's in the game. If you go to Sanford Stadium, you can see it and you hear it. When he gets in the game, everybody starts screaming, Zeus, Zeus, which is his nickname. So he's a fan favorite. You definitely have to expect him to take a turn and be one of the leaders on this football team.
Let's flip over to the other side of the ball. I know you talked about it when I was momentarily kicked out of the Zoom deal here. You probably, a guy you had to mention, and I know you did, is Jordan Davis on the defensive line. It is not only imperative to protect the quarterback, but it's imperative to get after the quarterback, especially all the quarterbacks in this mammoth SEC conference, JJ. Good golly, man, if you can't get after the quarterback in the SEC, you're done.
You're absolutely right. I mentioned Jordan Davis. Another player I mentioned was a transfer from community college, JUCO, whichever you prefer, Devontae Wyatt and Malik Herring. So they're all experienced at playing college football, and that's where it starts. We know the front seven is where everybody says, every announcer says, hey, the game's won in the trenches. It's so true. If you can't have a guy that plugs holes and gets after the quarterback, and you better believe it, you can expect players like N'Kobe Dean and Monty Rice to better get after the quarterback this year, with those guys stepping up, growing up another year. You have players like Jack linebacker, I mentioned him earlier, Ojulari, a wonderful playmaker, whether it's pass covering or making a tackle on the inside on a running play, or whether it's tracking the ball and making a play defending the pass. Georgia's got one of the top defenses, if not the top defense in the country. If you ask me, I'll tell you it's the top defense in the country. I think it was last year. They returned most of the players. And another key person who decided to come back, and we haven't even mentioned his name, is safety Richard Lecounte.
Yeah,
probably one of the best players.
Thank you.
Yep, probably one of the best players on Georgia's football on Georgia's roster, top to bottom.
He's an All-American.
Could have been a first-round draft pick.
Right. I mean, he graduated last year, so he's coming back. He'll be able to team up with J.R. Reed, the All-American safety who graduated from Georgia after the 2019 season. I apologize for that. Lecounte, man, this guy's the leader. He's definitely the unquestioned leader of the defense. He's the most experienced member of the defense. And you know what? You've got somebody in that secondary that's as good as he is. It's going to be tough to throw the ball on Georgia, providing they get to the quarterback. We got to go ahead and leave this topic. I'm sure we'll address it later on here on Dogs Tuesday on ATL Prime Sports. So, stick with us here on ATL Prime Sports as we talk about Dogs Tuesday. And let's go to our final topic of the day. Before we do that, though, I just want to let you know you can reach JJ at JJGetYou1 on Twitter. You can reach us at ATL Prime Sports on Twitter. And you can also reach myself at Quarter Todd on Twitter. Here's our third and final topic of the day. Here it is. UGA's grad transfer quarterback, Jamie Newman, has some impressive stats. We know about that. And now with the new OC in place, which you mentioned, we expect a gigantic season from this fifth-year graduate transfer from Wake Forest this fall, my friend.
Yeah, no, I think everybody in whoever writes a magazine, whoever writes a blog, whoever talks like we do is expecting a big-time season from Jamie Newman. No pressure, kid. Newman's one of the – according to Anthony Treesh of Football Focus, Newman's one of the best three quarterbacks returning next season. He's arguably the best passer in college football, touch passing. Deep ball basically is what that is. Anything over 20 yards. He had 22 such completions last year. Tied for most in the country in that category. So again, 22 completions, excuse me, meaning the ball was completed over 20 yards down the field, dropped in perfectly, in stride. That's exactly what a touch pass means. He was the leader in that category. So you bring that to Georgia, you can't tell me that they're not going to cater to that man, TC. They're going to have to use that ability.
I think they got to cater to him, too. They're going to have to not only use his arms, but use his legs. And this is – I can't wait to watch him play. Like I said, I think he's going to get the starting job. You do. But then again, you're going to have camp. You're going to have competition in camp. We've already mentioned it. They think he's going to be the third best quarterback in the country behind Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. And I tell you what, watching him play for Wake Forest in that bowl game against Michigan State, to me, he's as good as quarterback as the other two. Maybe I'm stretching a little bit. But when you get a guy that completes over 61% of his passes for almost 2,900 yards and 26 touchdowns at Wake Forest, and then be able to pick up that rock and run for about 575 and get 6 TDs, he gives Georgia another dimension at quarterback they haven't had in a while.
They haven't had, not since DJ Shockley, and he really was more of a pocket passer, a precision guy anyway. Another interesting stat about Jamie Newman, he is third in the nation in returning quarterbacks, that is, with an 88.0 passing grade while scrambling. That's third behind Justin Fields of Ohio State and another Big Ten quarterback in Tanner Morgan in Minnesota. They were both in the 90s. Newman's right there at 88. So that just tells you how good this guy is inside and outside the pocket. You mentioned the accuracy last year, almost 61%. 13 TDs, 3 interceptions when throwing the ball deep downfield. I think it was 11 total interceptions with 26 total TDs. So this guy can really, really sling it. And in Georgia's offense with a talented group of wide receivers and deep as well, you can expect a big season. I fully guarantee Jamie Newman, if you're a betting man, to be in the running for the Heisman throughout the season. I'm not saying he's going to be a finalist, but his name will probably be mentioned if Georgia does end up throwing the ball as much as speculation says.
Well, Georgia's going to win the Natty, and we're a long, long, long way from that. Winning the SEC, Jamie Newman, without a doubt, is going to be a Heisman Trophy contender along with Samir White. According to Urban Meyer, like we said, these guys are going to make to see it. I'm really confident we'll have a college football season. We got about a minute or so to go in this program here on ATL Prime Sports. JJ, we hopefully we'll have a college football season. It looks like we will. We'll get into that a little bit more tomorrow with some developments that have happened in college football off the field. But that's the end of our show. Tomorrow's show, we're going to be joined by Dave Cohen, the voice of the Georgia State Panthers. We'll talk about the Georgia State football program. tomorrow, you and I, along with our host, Stephanie Stallworth, we're also going to talk about the Braves and their draft picks, how we thought they did in the draft. And also we're going to talk about the ridiculous plight of Major League Baseball and whether potentially there's going to be a season. Hopefully by the time me and you get on the air tomorrow at 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, we'll have a miracle and we'll have a deal, and Rob Manfred and company will get them in the bargaining room and don't let them out until we get the deal. So anyway, calls tomorrow. We will take calls on the show tomorrow. 678-280-7123 on ATL Prime Sports. Join Stephanie Stallworth, JJ, and yours truly, Todd Quarter, then on ATL Prime Sports. Good afternoon, everybody. Talk to you later.
We'll see you tomorrow, folks. Get you one.
Newman.